This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome everybody back to Packed House tonight, MMM. Very exciting. Sometimes you try to find the right story, a yahrzeit, something that's coming up. And until today, Mincha time, I didn't really have something. Baruch Hashem, Hashem never fails. And his hashgacha is always there. He wants to make sure that there's something for myself to draw chizik from, and hopefully that it can help others. I'm telling you, this, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if I said it over here, the Maisa with the Delta story on the phone with the representative, and that the Delta guy, the guy behind the desk isn't really on the line, and it's all the Eibishter. So it's a similar story to that. If you didn't see that in Ayin Sham on Torah Anytime, it's a great Maisa. And I just, as a disclaimer, the reason why I would say over such a story isn't to say that there's some type of nace that I'm able to pull off. I think that it's working with the framework of the Heilige Chavis of Shar B'tachin and the Torah, and it's just a living example that happened to take place, that I accessed it. So it's not any type of, there's no magic, there's no not wearing a white turban or anything like that. It's Pasha, it's the Torah, and as I spoke about last week, Kusemes that we spoke about last week is Soimeches, it's Soimeches ala Torah, and we want to live with the Torah. And I'm just going to tell you a story that happened, that I tried accessing that Soimeches, and it's not any way of Gaiva, it's Pasha that there's a Torah, and Eitz Chaim and Machazikim ba, and that's the story. So first we're going to start with the Var, we're going to build it up, and then the story I think is going to punch that much stronger. So in this week's Parshas Boy, at the end in Parak Yud Aleph, as we approach, as we get closer to Makas Bechoros, the final blow, the 10th final Makkah, that ultimately was the impetus, the knockout punch that Pari acquiesced after all the stubbornness throughout the process of the Makkos. So what does the pasuk say? There's going to be another Makkah, another plague I am going to bring upon Parai. And afterwards, after this is the ultimate blow. And Parai is going to send you out. And as a prerequisite, in order for the Makkos Bechoros to happen, something very interesting, Hashem tells Moshe to tell Parai, Vishalu ish me'esrei ehu, right? Everyone had to borrow. Me'esrei ehu is referring to the mitzvim. They had to borrow. They had to take kelim and clothing from the mitzvim. V'isha me'esrei usa klechesef chayzav. Very interesting thing that before Makkos Bechoros is going to happen, the Yidden had to go to the mitzvim me'esrei ehu and take garments and take clothing and take etc. All these type of things, vessels and gold vessels and clothing before this Makkah happens. Why? Why was this important? Why was this necessary before Makkos Bechoros for this to happen? That they should be adorned with the mitzvah, with the Egyptian clothing, and they should have the vessels. What's the pshat? So Rashi tells us, Rashi says, Daberna, b'bakasha mincha hazir al-kach. Says Hashem, I need you, Moshe, to go tell them this. Why? Shelo yomer tzadik Avram. Avram Avinu should never come back and complain and say, Va'avadu v'inu oisam kiyim behem. Yeah, you're Mekayim, your first word, Hagini Debur, the first part of what you said, that they're going to work and they're going to schwitz and they're going to be in pain and it's going to be there, and you freed them out. That you were Mekayim. But you never Mekayim the second clause of your statement, of your promise, that you're going to leave, you're going to exit with Rechush Gadol. So therefore Hashem said, embedded in Hashem's message of how they're going to leave, about how there's going to be Makkos Bechoros, said Hashem, don't forget, I promised Klal Yisrael that they're going to leave Rechush Gadol. As is a Rashi. That's Rashi based on Gemara Brachas. That's Rashi, it's Gemara. The Mefarshim ask, which comes up a few times in the whole inyan of Yetzias Mitzrayim, that we in the Haggadah we thank Hashem how you were Baruch Shem Avtachas Yisrael. Thank you for being Shem Avtacha. What's this whole inyan over here that we're thanking Hashem that He's Mekayim His Avtacha, that He kept His promise, that He fulfilled His promise? Hakadosh Baruch Hu is Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Like, is there anyone in the world we shouldn't trust more than Hashem? Like, yeah, you have a deal, you have something, you have a business partner. Okay, Chas v'Shalom, Kula Am Echum Tzadikim, believe everyone. Yeah, so there's maybe a shtickle makom that a guy chas v'shalom can slip, and we shouldn't trust another person. But the Eibishter, so what's Baruch Shem Avtachas Yisrael? But as it relates to this over here, in fact, the Mefarshim, many of them ask, Hashem promised, Hashem said that you're going to go out b'chush gadol. So what's this whole interesting thing that you're going to go out, v'yishalu ishmish es l're'eyu, a whole funny thing, a whole funny setup, a whole masquerade over here. Go borrow from them, klei chesef, and be friends with them, and before you go out, Hashem had to fulfill the promise anyway. So what was it in this weird way that it had to be orchestrated, that make friends with them, right? Daber nabaz now, v'yishalu ishmish l're'eyu, like, why do they have to borrow it? First of all, like they should, maybe the mitzvah should have just came and dumped out all the clothing and say, here it is, we forfeit, we surrender, take everything. But what's the whole inning? And Hashem it had to happen anyway. So, like, what was Hashem hedging? That Avraham Avinu is going to come and have tainas on me, like Hashem wouldn't have to be Mekayim. Hashem has to be Mekayim. So Hashem made the promise. So obviously he's going to have to be Mekayim. So what's Hashem worried? Avraham Avinu is going to come back. Shema Yom Oiseh Tzadik, that you were only Mekayim the first half of sending them out. But the part of the Kli Ches V'Chizov of B'chush Gadol, you weren't. Like, it's Hashem. So again, the question is, the first of all, Hashem, he made the promise. Hashem has to be Mekayim. So what's this whole, Hashem is anticipating that Avraham Avinu is going to have tainas. That's the first question. And the second one is just the whole way that it came about, that they had to go and borrow is a very strange thing. Like, why do they have to borrow? Maybe the mitzvah should have just take off all the clothing, leave all their kalim, and say, here, take it, we're running, and you guys go. But why do they have to borrow? What's the whole in? So the unbelievable Torah from the Ach Pri Tvo, who is Reb Tzvi Hirsch Miliska, and he says unbelievable. Mamish, eye-opening. He says, Klal Yisrael was holding on such a level by Yetzias Mitzrayim. They were almost at Mem Teshar Tumah, and then they grew, and then they reached level. They were ready. They were being groomed, of course, right? They were being groomed. They were being led into this position of tremendous level of betachon. At the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, they were on tremendously high levels. They were on levels unprecedented, where their betachon was brimming. It was overflowing. They were at the greatest level possible of their emunah betachon. They went through all the tsaros, the oppression, and they went through it, and with the makkos, and believing Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron and the Nisim, and holding on, and there were 10 different demonstrations that had to be done. Right? It was a big deal, and they were at this level, ready for Yetzias Mitzrayim. Mamish lifnai lifnim ana ila in the. That's where they were holding. So says the Ach Pri Tvo. He says the Chavis of Avos talks about in the beginning in the Psicha to Betachon, famously, that there are 10 milas, there are 10 benefits that a Baal Betachon has over the alchemist. And he goes through 1, 2, 3, 4 very strange things, right? The first one he talks about the alchemist, who's the person who uses like materials and sorcery and all these interesting things, right? So he's always worried. He needs certain things. He needs certain material, but a Baal Betachon, as long as there's Hashem, anything can happen, right? And it goes on and on and on. The second one is that an alchemist, he has to be worried from the government that he might get exposed. But a Baal Betachon, he doesn't have to worry, as long as he's doing the right thing. He doesn't have to answer up to anyone besides Hashem. And then another one is that an alchemist, he has to work on his own skill, and he's a koichiv oitzim yadi type of person, and he has to make sure he's good at it and people like him. Baal Betachon doesn't have to do anything, doesn't have to make sure. He has to have full Betachon in Hashem and be led by the Eibishter. So all the Eibishter. So he goes to all these 10 things. And he says that that's really like through the 10 makkos, it's kind of like it was the same thing that Klal Yisrael, they reached this level of Betachon like never before, that no one has ever reached. They were on the highest level. Therefore, says Tzvi Hirsch, Be'etzem Klal Yisrael, at this point, they had the greatest rechush gadol. They had the greatest possession. They possessed the greatest rechush, possession, belonging, merchandise possible. Betachon itself. Right? And there was be'etzem no reason that they needed anything else. They had the betachon. They were on the highest level. They were groomed. They were prodded into this position. And Hashem wouldn't have to give them anything physical, because more than anything physical, more than any rechush gadol in physicality, is bitachon itself, is the virtue of believing and living with God. That is the highest level. So therefore, the original kasha, that why was HaKadosh Baruch Hu nervous? That Avram Avinu, Shema Omer Oiser Tzadik. What was he nervous? Avram's going to come back. Hashem made a promise. Yeah, the answer is Hashem made a promise. And Be'etzem, technically, the promise could have been fulfilled through the fact that Klal Yisrael has attained the highest, purest, unprecedented level of bitachon ever reached. Is there any greater level? Is there any greater rechush than that? And that's what Hashem could have said back to Avraham Avinu. Look what they have. Look at their rechush. Look at the gold, the spiritual gold that they're holding. Look at the real estate. Look at the investment. Look at the buildings. It's rechush. It's bitachon itself. They have me. But said HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm not like that. That's not how I take care of my children. Because other people can't see that. It's intangible. And therefore, I needed to make sure that there's a physical manifestation of that haftacha as well. And that's what I was hedging. That's what I was nervous about, Kaviyachal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. So therefore, what did I do? I had to give them something physical. Okay, so why did I have to give them? What was the whole idea of she'ela, of borrowing? Why couldn't the Mitzvah just drop their clothing, just drop their pants, their shirts, their jackets, their Rolexes, all the stuff that they stole? Why can that be? The answer is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to say, what's real rechush? It's b'derech hamuna, it's b'derech avodah, it's b'derech hardships, it's b'derech holding on to me, it's b'derech always needing and accessing me. And if the Mitzvah were to just drop their clothing and run, then Klal Yisrael will just start taking it. Look at this. So Hashem had to make it. It's b'derech she'ela. That the Yidden had to break themselves. They were on the highest level, and at that point they should go back to their oppressors. Mamash to a Yid, going back to Hitler and saying, see that Rolex in your hand, by the way? I know you just shot my entire family, and my kids, and my parents. Can I have a Rolex in your hand? Retarded, right? It never happened. That's what the Eibishter needed. He showed this is the highest level of bitachon, and I'm going to go back to the hand that killed me, to the hand that oppressed me, to that beat me for all these years, that hated me. And with that bitachon, Hashem says, go back. Because if you really believe in me, and if you're really holding at the level of bitachon that you're on, that I've been grooming you to, this should be no big deal for you. And that's why, says Tzvi Hersh, that first of all, they needed a physical, they needed the rechush gadol. Yes, Hashem promised them, but Hashem had a legal loophole. He could have said, I gave you the ruchnis they go on. I gave you have bitachon. And in terms of why it had to be derech she'ela, it's because Hashem had to make sure, he had to ascertain that if these were Yidden that were living on the level of Lech Techachar B'Midbar, they're about to jump into that level, the last punch, the knockout punch, was going to be making sure that asking for the Rechush Gadol was going to be that you have to literally make friends with your oppressor and be comfortable, because I said it's going to work out. Api Hashem, I said you should ask, you do it, and don't be worried, and it's going to work out. That is the pshat and the psukim. That's why it had to come out that even taking the rechush had to be b'derech avodah, had to be b'derech bitachon. Hashem had to make sure there was one cohesive, one message of bitachon, that they were on the highest level of bitachon. They should use that bitachon to access the promise of rechush gadol as well. What do we see from here? We see from here the most unbelievable thing, that as Klal Yisrael was on their way out, as they were going into the Midbar, they were going into Mount Torah, they were starting that voyage, that odyssey of prepping themselves, of grooming themselves for Mamlechas Kahana V'Goy Kadosh, we see from the Psukim, what did Hashem need, what did Hashem want, what did Hashem need to be ultimately defined perfectly? It had to be that level of bitachon. That level of bitachon, Einin Mevadeh, Hashem Elokim, Einin Mevadeh, and they're ready at all costs, and this is the highest level, and there's nothing else in the world besides bitachon. And when you have that, then Hashem could do Yitzias Mitzrayim. Then Hashem can say, go to the people that hate you most and the people that you think messed you over and that they killed your families and your kids, and you can even go to them, because when you have bitachon, there's no teva. Nothing has to make sense, nothing has to add up. And that was the message Hashem needed to impart, and that was what Hashem is going to say to Avram Avinu, Yotzer B'Rechush Gadol. Hashem is going to say, Avram, don't worry. I gave them Rechush Gadol not only spiritually and physically, but the bitachon that they had, that's what they needed. And now they're ready to go into the Midbar for the next 40 years to be tested again. But when you have bitachon, you have anything. So what was the story I want to tell you? Again, this has nothing to do with me, but it's just it's something that I saw that punkt happened with me. So today, I was on the phone. As you saw, laser, new car, it's the rental. Why did I get a new rental? Because Baruch Hashem, car, I'm okay, everyone's good. Got into an accident, you need to get a new car. And you need to get new insurance also. Right. I need to get new insurance. So, what happened was, it was 20 minutes before Mincha. 20 minutes before Mincha. And the insurance company needed a document of proof that I had coverage for certain things from 2020 to 2024. Okay? So I figured I had 20 minutes until Mincha. I'm going to call them up and hopefully I'll be able to get a relatively quick and send it to the guy. We can move on because I need to get this done already. I call up Berkshire Hathaway guard. Get on the phone pretty quick with a guy. And he says, I say, okay, can I have the documents? He says, sure, let me verify you. 100 verification questions. Mother's name, maiden name, number, mima. Fine. What do you need? I need this document from 2020 to 2024 that I had coverage on certain things. He says, okay, fine. He says, I need to research it. I need to look into it and make sure I can put it all together. He said, it can take up to 5-10 minutes. I need to get onto a different call at that point, mamash at that second. So I said, do me a favor. I said, I can't really talk to you so long. I don't want to hang this up because it's important. Can I put you on mute? And whatever, I'll put you on mute. I'll do what I need to do. You do. He said, here's the protocol. He says, I'm going to check back with you in 5 minutes. If you're not there, I'm going to check back in 10 minutes. Last one, 15 minutes. And then the final one is 2 minutes later. So you basically have 17 minutes. Mincha's in 20 minutes from right then. Fine. So I get into my other call, whatever I have to do. I hear him chime in. Okay, it goes on 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Fine. I'm in the way. I go up to Mincha. And I really need these documents. I really want them. I don't want to be busy with it again. I see the time's going on. It's a lengthy process. And right then I realized I was confronted with a serious issue. Mincha starting. They started Ash already. I'm on the phone listening to the music, waiting for the guy to come back. Hello, nothing doing. And they're starting Shemona Esrei. They're starting Ashrei, Kaddish. So I'm still, it's Ashrei, I'm still waiting on the phone, hopeful. Start Kaddish. Aminish Mirabah, I chop it in. And then they're really starting. And I thought to myself, I have a choice over here. I've been on the phone already for 15, 18 minutes, and I want to do this again. And if I have to do this again, he's not sending me the documents. I asked him, could you just send me the documents when we're done? He said 100% not. He said the protocol is, I have to speak to you, you have to do more verifications. Okay? So I thought to myself right in there, as much as I don't want to call him back, and as much as I want the documents, but the king is waiting. The king of kings, who's going to decide if I ever am going to need this insurance. And the king was going to decide, he knows exactly where that guy in Tennessee is, and he knows the whole thing. And he knows how much I really need the documents, and how much I don't want to have to do this all over again. So the king knows. The Kel Elyon God of Venera that I'm going to talk about in a second, if I really believe in it, it would be such a stira if I stay on the phone right now, because as much as I want it, I'd be a shtickle kaifer if I stay on the phone with him and then I go and say, you're the Kel God of Hagir Bavanaira, after I miss it, and I down myself to Chidis. So I said, you know what, fine. Right, this all happened in a second. You know what? I'm leaving the phone on. I'm leaving it over here, and I'm not going to let it start my davening. I'm going to have a good davening, regular davening, and I'm going to come back and see what happens. I'm probably not going to, but maybe he'll be on the phone at least. Kitzar daven, regular davening, didn't let it start me. I came back to the phone, and lo and behold, there's an email with the documents. And then it hit me. Not that it was an ace, and not that I'm a rebel. But when Yisrael Mechan Hashem, and he believed that he's the Kel Elyon God of the Neira, and he's Baruch Ata Hashem, he's the Makar HaBracha, and I can't do anything on this phone call, and I can't manipulate, but I just left it to him, and Hashem knew that I can do better things with waiting again on guard on the phone the next day, and I already left it to him. Hashem said, here's your documents. Hashem said, I don't need to do this again. It was in the Nisayan. I knew you wanted to do what you wanted to do, but I have another way of operating. And when I saw that email, it was a kiss from Shemaim. Again, all it was an email, and I could have done it all over again, but it was a strong reminder that we need to do our shtadlus. But when we need these little kisses from Shemaim, and we really believe in it, and we're really there to access it, Hashem can do it. And even when the guy on the phone with the clerk mentality says, no, sir, we have protocol, and you're talking with Berkshire Hathaway, and they're a legitimate company, and they're like, no, you need to actually be there. We need to re-verify you, and if not, we'll have to reconnect tomorrow. You have to call back our inbound call center again. But Hashem knows, like Hashem is the Kal and God of Anur. He's the great and mighty and awesome, and He's the source of all blessing, and He can do anything. He can get you the documents also. He can send the email. The side is when we have betachin, when we go b'derech avesein of lech techachar b'bin b'baretz le'zurah, and remember that's the most important thing. That's what we needed for Geula. That's what we needed for Kabbalah Satira. That's what we need every second of our lives. May Hashem give us the nisim, the clarity, the yeshuas, the nechamas that we all need, and with the ultimate arrival of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'meir b'minu amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.